I got blackmailed by a professor in academia. No joke, this is real. I actually have evidence that I will show you later on in this video. But this gives you an idea as to how dark academia can be. And unfortunately, it was one of the main reasons why I left. So it's been nearly 2 years since I actually left the lab and left academia. And there were many things over the 8 and 9 years that I was there that were not great, like with any other job. But this story that I'm about to tell you was the final nail in the coffin that made me realize that this life perhaps isn't for me. Now, within the wet lab field, no matter what you're doing, microbiology, immunology, there are moments that there are amazing stories. And I'm here just to make sure to set the record straight that this isn't a dig at academia. This is something that I actually went through that I want to share, that hopefully all of you can perhaps protect yourself, because I don't want anybody else or anybody who's watching this video to go through what I went through. However, there is a large majority of stories, and unfortunate ones, that seem to be happening within the STEM field, within the wet lab scenarios. And unfortunately, this is one of the kind of worst scenarios I had and I went through, and I hope nobody goes through. But I think it's important to share. So, how did I actually get blackmailed? So to give some context, to give some background as to how I ended up getting blackmailed by a professor. With this professor, I actually had an ad hoc postdoc. So it was technically a postdoc, but it was random hours here and there with a little bit of money. And I thought the project seemed really good. It was in post-operative immunology. And my task was essentially to see which form of surgery through plasma samples and looking at flow cytometry, which essential surgery was causing a reduction in inflammation post-operatively. So which one would cause the most amount of inflammation by virtue, the other one perhaps could be better, in simple terms. And that's what my work was. So essentially I was running an entire cytometric panel in a university that hasn't done it before, with a team that hasn't done it before. And when I mean team, I just mean me. I didn't really have any help. Didn't have any other students. So really already red flags, number one. Now, to add to this, there were red flags in terms of experimental design. Things were very haphazard from the professor, from the clinician who actually gathered the plasma samples. Things were not aligned the way it should be. But because I thought I was falsely promised, which I'm going to talk about later on, falsely promised this notion of having a postdoc with this research, I thought, you know what, after so many years of trying to find a full-time postdoc, maybe this would be my break. This would be my big break. It couldn't be any further from the truth. Now, to add to this, I was working 14, 15-hour days on top of all the other jobs I was working, because this wasn't a full-time role. This was something I had to try and fit in where I could with other jobs. So I was, again, trying to cram in a lot of work, because that's the only time I had access to the flow cytometer. So because the procedure would take that long, I had to do one run, finish it, and then start another run within the same day. So I was starting at 9 in the morning and I was finishing at 5 in the morning the next day, technically. So it's like, I don't know how many hours that is. I had to do this a couple of times just to try and get the data in time. So you can see there's so many red flags, so stressful. And here's where it gets really, really daunting. So I finished my work, I handed in all the reports, handed in all the analysis, and unfortunately there was no money left. So essentially my contract was done, contract was finished. I wasn't kind of paid all the money that I should have been paid or was promised, because the money ran out, which was a shame. So 4 months after that, remember, I finished my contract, I'm not even within the university doing any lab work anymore. I was sitting in a coffee shop. 4 months, by the way, after I finished, I handed in all the analysis, handed in all the findings, handed in all the caveats and stuff like that already, ages ago, right? 4 months, keep that in mind. I didn't get a call from this professor on my personal number to say, just like that, hey, are you free? Could you jump on Teams? Now, for those who don't, Teams is like Google Meet or FaceTime for universities. Just like that. Again, rude. As if I've got nothing else to do after 4 months. So I politely declined and said, no, I'm a bit busy at the moment. And I didn't say yes in any of the subsequent calls. And here's why I want to share that. If you're in a call, video call, audio call, there's no thread of evidence. If you were to email, there's a thread of evidence. If there was a text, there's a thread of evidence. And if you were to call, you don't have somebody present as a witness. I didn't have that opportunity, so I declined video calls because, bear in mind, I don't need to do this. I finished my contract. I'm not working for you anymore. I handed everything I need to. Any questions you have are in those answers that I sent to you. So naturally, as you've seen with many other academics, this got more and more heated. I was declining the video calls and calls because I didn't have the time. I had other work to do. I can't just miraculously carve out time after 4 months now that you've bothered to look at the work. So this is probably something that you're probably going through as well, which is why I'm sharing this. So emails started getting more and more heated. I replied things I need to reply. I said I'm not available for video call. You can email me, and I'm happy to email back, because I knew they would just try and squeeze more and more out of me and ask me to do stuff. So I declined. And then I got this text message. I'm just going to pull out on my phone. So you see on the screen, but I'm going to read it out as well. Hi Aamir, would you be able to speak to me this afternoon, please? I'm out of time now. I need to resolve some issues if we are to publish the paper. If I need to get the data reanalyzed, then you will not be included in the authorship, as we will not be using your analyzed data. Please make some time to discuss with me. Available all afternoon. Many thanks. Now, to give you some context, I was at the same coffee shop actually, because I'm there most times. You see this on Instagram, Aamir.phd, if you want to follow those things. And I was with a colleague, and I got that message in real time, and I showed it to her. Very much, she's senior to me, she's supervised PhD students. She has said she's never seen anything like that in the text. Now, you might say that doesn't sound bad, but you have to understand, I am the one who gathers the raw data. Nothing to do with if the data is analyzed or not, because the person who gathered the data in the first place, it's me. So you can reanalyze it to your heart's content, but I'm the one who actually gathers the data. So to be threatened and blackmailed and say, look, if you don't actually call, we're going to remove your name off the paper, is blackmail. And that's how I got blackmailed from a professor, which is not nice. But here's how I try to rectify the situation from my end. I lost a lot of things. I lost my name on the paper because I didn't hear anything back from them. Obviously, I'm not with the university anymore. I lost a chance to have a fully funded postdoc with that professor. Lost a chance to have bigger networks within the research. Now, I lost all of those things, and I'm glad I did, because the toxic environment, the hassle, the stress that I was going through just in this postdoc alone was a telltale sign that I shouldn't go down this road. And with all the issues I had within academia before from my own experiences, this was like, if I'm not getting blackmailed and all that blood, sweat and tears that I did, remember, 9 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock at night, I was there. Yeah, for day in, day out at some points. On the weekends, calling the company, the BD, which is the flow cytometer. BD Curie C6 was the flow cytometer I was using. I was on a call with Portugal out of my own pocket, calling them to try and understand the protocol. All of that, and then I was then threatened to remove my name off the paper 4 months after I gave them the data. So you can understand my frustration and my upset feeling at that time. But then here's what I did to make sure this would never happen to me again. I wrote an entire breakdown email of everything that happened, and voiced my opinions about. I explained all of this. At the time. I had all the evidences, all the screenshots, all the previous emails, all the previous files, and I sent it in this one master email. So if anybody or any of these people will come to me, I said, look, there's a thread of evidence there. I haven't heard from the academic, I haven't heard about the research, and frankly, I don't care. There's much more enjoyable people that I get to work with now, and much more enjoyable research that I'm a part of. But that gives you a real depiction, a real understanding as to what I actually went through, and unfortunately, what many other researchers are going through in academia, which is why they left. I put the Nature paper here. You see a decline in people staying in academia, so many people want to leave and have non-traditional careers because they find it more enjoyable. And you're probably wondering why. This is an example as to why. This for me was a nail in the coffin as to why I left. And I'm thankful for what I do now. I'm grateful. I do miss elements of academia, but who's going to miss that really? Who's going to miss those scenarios? Yes, to caveat, to make sure I'm not being biased, there are many scenarios where people are having enjoyable careers. I know a friend of mine who's at Cambridge University, or one of the institutes within that Cambridge area, and he's loving life. And there are many people who do that, but unfortunately there is a majority who don't get that, and that's a shame. And unfortunately those people have to essentially pick and choose, deal with hostility, toxicity, just to stay in academia because you've done a PhD, or try and carve and be courageous, carve another career outside of the fold of academia, which is what I've done. So, hope you found that insight and that story useful. Unfortunately, there are many more that I would be happy to share. If you think it's of useful, let me know in the comment section down below. Do subscribe if you want to, if you think these stories and the tips that I share on my channel are of benefit. And I shall see you in the next one. Take care.